Hi, my name is Jennifer Antonetti, and I'm the band director at Topeka High School in Topeka, Kansas. I'm so excited that you have been selected for this KBA middle level honor band. The clinician is going to be super fun. In fact, one of the songs that we're playing is written by our clinician, Mr. Steve Graves. Before we get into the music, I do want to go over just a very quick warm-up sequence that I like to do every time I get out my saxophone and make sure everything's working and I sound good before I'm ready to have a good practice session. So the first thing I almost always do is I play my full range chromatic scale. So you can choose any note that you want to start on, and you go all the way to the highest note you can play, and then all the way down to the lowest note you can play, and then back to the note you started. Here's what it sounds like on my saxophone. And that's a good way for me to be able to check to make sure all of my notes are sounding good and I don't have any sticky keys. You do have to watch out sometimes that your G sharp doesn't get stuck or your low C sharp doesn't get stuck. Those tend to be kind of sticky keys. So chromatic scale is a great way to warm up and check to make sure that all of your keys work. All right, so the first song we're gonna look at is El Camino de Anaheim by Steve Graves. He is the clinician that you get to work with, which is super cool. A couple of things as we're learning new music, I like to follow the star sight reading method. So first, I look at all of my key signatures and time signatures, S, and I notice that I'm in 4/4, and I have one flat, B flat in my key signature. Now, tricky thing, you might look at that and you might think, oh, that looks like I'm in F major or concert E flat. Okay, but this is tricky. It's not actually in a major scale. It's not in a minor scale either. It's in what's called Phrygian dominant. And so it has kind of a minor sound with a couple of extra added notes. Sounds super cool. The next thing I look at is tempo. Now, the tempo is not written at the top of your music. When I listened to this piece, I saw that it was about at quarter note equals 120. So you might want to grab your pencil and just write that in. Write quarter note equals 120. If you need a pause, do that now. Okay, welcome back. We just did the signatures and tempo. Next in our star sight reading method is accidentals and articulations. So for accidentals, in the first measure right away, I see that I'm starting on a C sharp. There's several times where I see C sharp in this song, but that's not in the key signature. If you need to go ahead and grab your pencil and write in your C sharps, or if you need to write in flats for yourself to remind you to play B flat in any of your music, such as in measure 8, in measure 25, measure 28, measure 41, you have some B flats. And if you need to go ahead and circle those C sharps, you should go ahead and do that now as well. Go ahead and pause and write in your accidentals and the notes in your key signature. Okay, welcome back. The next part of our sight reading method is rhythms. Now, this piece, El Camino de Anaheim, uses some syncopated rhythms. That means we accent some of the notes that are off the beat. And I see that right away in the first two measures where we have an accented that's on the end of one, an accented note on the end of one. So what we get is 1 and 3, 1 and 3. Try those first two measures with me, or you can listen first and then try it yourself. Awesome. Try those first two measures all by yourself, making sure you get the articulations, the accents, and also the staccato notes. Do that right now. Awesome. Okay, so we see this rhythm come quite a bit in the song, though. 1 and 3. There's a couple variations. So check out measure 3. We see 1 and 3, 4. So we hold just that first note a little bit longer. So we think 1 and 2 and 3, 4. Here's what measure 3 sounds like. And we have those big accents again. Check out measure 9. We get 1 and 3, 4 with a half note this time. Here's measure 9. And measure 10's the same on a different note. Cool. Okay, so those are some of the tricky rhythms that we might see. We also see a few other places where there's eighth notes, like in measure 4, C sharp, D, C sharp, D, C sharp. You go from no fingers, 7 fingers, no fingers, 7 fingers, no fingers. And in measure 8, now we're above in our higher register, same kind of rhythm, different notes. And then that comes back in measure 25 and measure 41. Okay, probably one of the last tricky things is that in the very last measure. Okay, it is very separated. Those 3 notes are actually on the beat, D, C sharp, D. But we want to hear the space in between the notes. So it's loud, articulated, with lots of space, pretty aggressive. Try that and make sure you can get a good sound. Also, on our sight reading method, the last S stands for signs and symbols. So grab that pencil again, circle your repeat sign, that's at measure 5, and then circle the one that's at the end of measure 12, because you want to make sure your eyes jump back to measure 5. And that's kind of the only repeat sign there. A couple of other important signs, though, are your dynamics. At measure 14, it needs to be quiet and controlled. It needs to be very controlled. All right, I want to go ahead and play a little bit of this piece for you so that you can follow along. One thing to note, in order to sound good, we have to make sure that on all of our notes that are D's and the high A's, we open up, because those tend to be very sharp notes on the saxophone, and we want to bring the pitch down. So we see a lot of D notes in this song, and we see also a lot of high A's. We want to make sure we're open so that we sound good. Here's the beginning of El Camino de Anaheim. Awesome, and then that's where we would repeat back to 5. Now the quiet part at 14, make sure we play our low notes with lots of control. Here's starting at measure 14. We are backgrounds here, so nice and quiet. That's the whole song. So you'll notice we have a lot of parts that are exactly the same. Measure 22, that music is a lot like what we had at square 25. And then at square 38, that's very similar to what we had at square 22 and square 5. So those things kind of keep coming back. We do have a little bit of a melody section on beat 4 of measure 29 is where we have that. If you want to grab your pencil and draw a star there so that you know you are the star, and that goes all the way until the end of measure 37. So that's an important part. All right, let's look at the next song. This is Destiny Fanfare. Now, Destiny Fanfare should be bright and triumphant and epic, and we want to sound heroic. In this song, the staccato is very, very light. We mostly have backgrounds in this song, but there's a couple of really important parts that I want to draw your attention to. So same sight reading method. Make sure you grab your pencil and you circle the key signature and time signature at the beginning. It's the same key signature as El Camino de Anaheim, but a very different kind of feeling. Okay, because this one is in major, and so we're playing in F major or concert E flat major. It's also going to be smooth and connected, measures like 31 to 44, and our staccato throughout is going to be super, super light. So in our sight reading method T, we have our tempo for our allegro, that means quick and lively. You see quarter note equals 138 if you want to practice with your metronome on. A, articulations and accidentals. We do have a few accidentals, so you want to make sure you see the E flat in measure 15 that carries all the way through measure 15. And then you have an E flat in measure 27. And then in measure 62, you have a B natural, an F sharp, and then in measure 63, it goes back to F natural. Okay, so all those articulations and accidentals. If you need a pause right now and circle those parts or write them in, please do that. Okay, welcome back. So the next part of our sight reading method is rhythms. We see a lot of quarter notes and eighth notes, especially from measure 8 to measure 29. Those are going to be kind of background figures that lend to this very light, galloping kind of staccato feel. And our last part, any signs and symbols. There's no repeats in here. It's pretty much just straight forward. Our first two notes should be in time, full, but not too loud and articulated. They're on our middle C, which is a pretty easy note for us to play on tenor sax. Nice and big and full. And then we carry that through measure 5, 6, and then in 7, we start playing these background figures. So on measure 7, count 4 is almost like a pickup note to measure 8. And we see that count 4 pickup note from measure 8 to 9 as well, and then several other places. Let's go ahead and start right at measure 7. So I'm going to count 3 counts of rest and then play on count 4. Remember, this is a little bit faster. 1, 2, 3. So that part is very rhythmic. Hopefully you heard me do the dynamics, so that there was a day crescendo in measure 10 and 11, and I got down to mezzo piano by measure 12, and then there was a crescendo in measure 21. Now this section that starts at square 31 is a little bit of a different mood. It's going to be a little bit smoother and connected, so we want to make sure we're playing full value whole notes. When we get to 45, there's more articulated notes, and that leads us into our two measures where we have a low instrument feature. You get to be the star in measure 47 and 48, so grab your pencil and write a star there. That's going to be low instruments to bring out that part. And from 47 to 60, that's going to be a lot like what we had at the beginning. So here's 31, the more smooth and connected section. It's a little bit quieter. We do start on a high G, so make sure you are playing 1, 2, 3 an octave with a nice open throat so that we can go down to the low G. This octave jump can be a little bit difficult. Sometimes our low G doesn't want to come out and we get still a high G, even when you take off the octave key. So your throat has to be nice and open as if you were playing the low G, but then just add the octave key. So I would practice this right now. Practice playing measure 32 first, and then add your octave key to play measure 31. Okay, so that way you can get those two G's in your ear. Then when we play it, it's going to be opposite. All right, so here is measure, let's do measure 30 so that we can practice the day crescendo on the F and then go into G. So here is measure 30. 1, 2, here we go. So that was the smooth section. Make sure when you're using your tongue in between each of the notes, it's very light. You think da, da, da versus ta. We want a very light tongue. All right, here's measure 47 and 48. This is the low instrument star part. So just those two measures. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, and. Yeah, nice and big and full. And then after that, we go into a background section again, and to the end. So let's go ahead and play 47 to the end, and we're going to be very aware of dynamics and articulations, and then those altered accidentals that we wrote in. Here's 47 to the end. Remember, 47 to 48, you are the star. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, and. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Cool, and that last note, super articulated, super short. If you need to write a note to yourself that says freeze, we want you to not move at all so that we can make sure that the sound just evaporates for the audience. All right, next song. Next song is called Softly Speaks the Night. This is by composer Brittin Chambers, and she wrote this to be very beautiful and very smooth and connected. We want to play with full note values, and you want to make sure to not breathe on bar lines. So if you need to write in a breath mark in a couple of places that are not on bar lines, that would be super helpful. So circle that key signature and time signature at the beginning. You will know that it changes at square 35, so go ahead and circle that as well. For tempo, we have adagio, which is going to be very smooth and kind of medium tempo. Not terribly slow, but definitely not fast. That tempo doesn't stay the same the whole time. Okay, in measure 33, we have a ritardando, and that means to slow down our tempo, but what it really means is to watch your conductor, because you don't know how fast or how slow they're gonna go. And then at 35, a tempo means back to the original tempo. And then we have another ritardando at measure 47 and another a tempo at 48. Grab your pencil and right above measure 33 and measure 35 and 47 and 48, you can draw googly eyes, you can draw glasses, or you can write the word watch to make sure you remind yourself to watch the conductor. For this song, we don't have a whole lot of accidentals. We have just a couple. In measure 32, I see a B flat. That's going to help us get into the new key signature when we get to square 35. There's not a whole lot of articulations. In fact, there's a lack of articulation because we want everything to be connected. And there's not really a whole lot of signs and symbols either. Check out measures 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. Those notes are written kind of tiny because they are French horn cues. Okay, if you were in a band that didn't have French horns, you would play them. Sometimes directors like to have you play the cues, and sometimes you don't. So this would be a good opportunity for you to ask your conductor if they would like you to play the cues for the French horns. All right, so let's hear this smooth and connected. At measure 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, and 11, we have a counter melody to what the clarinets are playing. Okay, so the clarinets have a beautiful melody starting at 5, and then we kind of help them along with a counter melody at measure 6. Here's the beginning, smooth and connected, adagio. 1, 2, ready, play. Now, one thing you'll notice that I did with this beautiful counter melody is I did what's called playing the contour, right? So as notes go up, we play just a little bit louder, and as notes come down, we play just a little bit softer. And this helps our phrasing and helps give shape and direction to all of these beautiful, smooth and connected notes. You'll also notice in measure 12, I played that whole note full value. So I'm counting in my head 1, 2, 3, 4, off. And if you need to make a reminder to yourself by writing -1 or off on 1 at the end of the whole note, or drawing an arrow that makes it smooth and connected, that would be very helpful as well. Okay, let's go to the part at 21. So this is after the horn cues where you would come in. This part is going to be very similar to the part at square 5, but it's a little bit louder because we're at mezzo forte instead of mezzo piano. Here's measure 21. 1, 2, ready, play. notice the same thing, same full value whole note. Now at measure 29, the flute players have the melody for 2 measures, and then when we come in measure 31, we need to play our note on D, open and with lots of control. Remember, that's one of our sharp notes. Okay, so we want to make sure that we're playing with lots of control, thinking open. Here's measure 31. 1, 2, ready, play. And on that last note, nice and connected all the way to count 1. Your director might do a retardando there and they might not, so make sure to also watch. All right, now the last song, Dark Ride by composer Randall Standridge. He writes a lot of articulations in his song, so that's going to be something that's super, super important. There's a couple of tempo changes and time changes. So we see our 4/4 and our F sharp right at the beginning, and it's at quarter note equals 72, but then it changes to be fast at square 11. So that is at quarter note equals 160. Now throughout this piece, it's super, super important that you're playing your A sharp, which is the same note as B flat as 1, 2, and side. So if you've been taught a different way by your director in this song, it's super, super important to do 1, 2, and side. The reason is because a lot of times we go from A sharp to B natural, and this is the most in tune A sharp, and it also makes it super easy to go from A sharp to B natural. Also, let's look at the trills. So in measure 17, we have a trill from B to C. So in order to do that, you play your B and then your side C, which is the middle key on this group of 3. Try by playing the B first and then wiggling the side C. Try that, okay? And then in measure 18, we have a trill from F sharp to G. So you start by playing an F sharp, and then you wiggle your finger from F sharp to G to get that trill sound. Make sure you notice in measure 19 that you only play the second time only, and so make sure to count your measures. We want full value on the tenuto notes. This is going to be a lot of fun, a really fun piece. So we have to keep up the energy because look, it goes even faster at square 52. And then at the very end, we have that B to C trill again. So there's a whole lot going on. Here's measure 7 in the mysterious and creepy tempo. Make sure you're trying that 1, 2, and side fingering for your A sharp. 1, 2, here's measure 7, play. And you can hear how it sounds kind of creepy. All right, let's jump ahead to measure 36. Measure 36, this is in the faster section and our rhythms become very important. We also have some different accidentals, so make sure in this section you know when you're playing F sharp and when you're playing F natural, because that can get a little bit tricky. Then in measure 39, we have a D sharp, And in measure 42, check this out. It's tricky. We go from F sharp to E sharp. Well, guess what? E sharp is the same exact thing as F natural, right? So in measure 42, we're playing F sharp, E sharp, which is the same as F natural, and then F sharp again. So check this out. Here's measure 36, and we're gonna stop in measure 51. 1, 2, here we go. Go faster at measure 52. So check this out, measure 52. Cool. Hey, have fun practicing and good luck with this music. It's super fun. You're going to have a total blast. Bye.